I'm going to read a piece now called Defiance, Ohio is the name of a band. This is a piece that is a lyric essay which is largely about my time as a fan of a band called Defiance, Ohio from my hometown of Columbus. And also, it is about the heroin epidemic in the actual town of Defiance, Ohio, which is an actual town about 2 hours from where I'm from. The thing to listen for in this piece is how the two worlds connect, the world of the band and the world of the town, until they ideally become one to a reader and a listener. Defiance, Ohio is the name of a band. And the thing is that they are from Columbus, Ohio, which is confusing to folks on the East Coast when I tell them about the time they played for 4 hours at the Newport and it was raining outside, but me and everyone I knew still locked arms after the show and walked down High Street singing "Oh Susquehanna" at the top of our lungs until some dive bar security threatened to kick all of our asses. And he had 20 pounds on all of us combined. And Defiance, Ohio plays folk punk, which pretty much means that sometimes they let a banjo or a cello crawl into bed with the screaming. And all of their shows feel like they were made just for you. And Jeff plays guitar for them and makes singing look effortless. And I guess it is kind of, because all their fans know all the words to their songs. And they sing them so loud, it's like the band doesn't even have to. And their fans are often cloaked in tattoos, in trucker hats, and ironic hand-me-down shirts from old car garages or Little League baseball teams. And they jump on each other's backs at shows, and they scream in each other's faces. And it's like familial, I guess. Or I guess it is most times. One time at a show, I saw a dude with some straight edge tattoos knock out some dude who had an entire school of fish inked on his arm. And so, okay, it's certainly not always familial. And when the guy with the fish tattoos hit the floor, someone from the band stopped the music and said, "Hey, listen, don't come to a Defiance, Ohio show and fight. Cut that shit out. Hold hands with each other or some shit." Which is funny to say coming from a band that put the song "I Don't Want Solidarity If It Means Holding Hands With You" on their first album, which was a fine album. But it had a little too much acoustic noise for my taste. And Defiance, Ohio is a real town in Ohio. And the band is not from there. And anyone who is from there either leaves or dies. And in the summer of 1794, General Mad Anthony Wayne ordered a fort be built at the confluence of the Maumee and Auglaize rivers in Ohio. And when it was done, a soldier from Kentucky named Charles Scott stood in front of the fort and said, "I defy the English and all the devils of hell to take this." And that's how the fort was called Fort Defiance, and how a whole city spilled around it by 1904. And that city was also named Defiance. And the site of the fort is a library now, or at least that's what I've been told. And me and my pals would drive up to Defiance town every now and then, when we were old enough for adventure but too young to properly wallow in the depths of Columbus's scene. And we would go to Bud's Diner and flirt with the waitresses. And sometimes we would drive down the back roads, screaming the words to some punk dirge out of the open windows of a car we had to have back in someone's parents' driveway by morning. And sometimes we would take out mailboxes with a baseball bat. And one time, a man ran out of a house with a Confederate flag hanging from the porch, and he chased us down the road, calling us outside of all our names. And my buddy Derek said he swore he saw the man holding a shotgun, and so we stuck to the fears of our own city from that point on. And the second Defiance band album came out in 2006, and it was called The Great Depression, and it nearly started an honest revolution in my little corner of heartbreak. And I barely made it through 2006 alive, because we had to bury Tyler, and Marissa too. And in the song Condition 1111, there are the lyrics, "I remember in the kitchen when you told me your grandma died. That's when I realized it gets worse." And it does get worse. It is really something to remember that you can actually be alone. And so when the band sings, "Here's to this year I never thought I'd make it through. I put my arms around someone else who did make it and swayed along as the clock swung itself past midnight at the end of December. And I saw Defiance band in another sweaty room in '07, and everyone there was sad, and so no one was into fighting that night. And the band let the cello and the banjo strings sit thick and heavy in the air, and no one seemed to mind. And it's like, if we all try hard enough in the same room, everyone can remember what it is to lose somebody at the same time. And Defiance town is awash with heroin now, and I see it on the news. A man nodding off in a car, and 2 people overdosing in the same night, and 27 people dragged to the town jail in a drug bust. And it is the kind of town that will hold you under its tongue until it is ready to swallow you whole. And they found the body of a kid who used to come up to Columbus for punk shows in an abandoned Defiance town apartment. And his body was surrounded by spent lighters. And he was at the Defiance band show where they played Grandma's song. And everyone put up their cell phone lights, but the true punks put up their lighters and waved them when the band sang, "Do you come from a dead people?" And Defiance town is dying off like all of Ohio's other towns that feed the bigger cities in both food and those who escape. And in the Defiance town paper, I read a story about the heroin epidemic, and the headline said, "We will not let this destroy us." And above it is a picture of a mother pulling her young daughter's frail body close to her chest in front of a worn-down house. And in her eyes is a determination. And in her eyes, she is daring all the devils of hell to come and take what is hers. And I thought about what it must be like to name yourself after a town that has become a ghost factory and play songs about surviving all manner of haunting. And Defiance band hasn't made a record in 6 years. And the last one sounded like they were trying to get out of each other's way. And I heard they played some Indiana dive last spring. And I heard the pit was wicked. And later that week, there was another drug bust in Defiance town. And there are times when destruction is not as much of a choice as we think it is. And man, I barely made it out of 2006 alive. And in the Defiance band song, "Oh Susquehanna," the chorus that everyone sings goes, "And I wonder, what do they do with the bodies? And I wonder, what do they do with the bodies? And I wonder, what do they do with the bodies? And I wonder."